200 in this time frame. It's not impossible, but and I'll be a little political here. I'm not sure that it's going to happen this year. I'm still optimistic that Ethereum can manage, but there is increased competition. It's very clear that President Trump wants to be a crypto president. Not just make America great again, but make America a crypto hub again. Mantra is still an RWA or real world asset chain. That is our core focus, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't engage in the community building activities, meme coins and NFTs and collectibles and things of this nature.
مرحبا. من موظف بنك سابق إلى مؤسس إحدى أهم العملات المشفرة اليوم بقيمة سوقية تتجاوز 3 مليارات دولار. نموها تجاوز نمو البيتكوين نفسها مع نمو سنوي قدر بنحو 6000% خلال 2024. هي من أبرز العملات المشفرة المعنية بترميز أصول العالم الحقيقي. آخر وأهم مشاريعها كانت مع ماج العقارية ومع دمك، إضافة إلى التعاون مع جوجل كلاود الذي شكل دفعة أساسية للتبني المؤسساتي للعملات المشفرة. نتحدث عن مانترا العملة المشفرة وعن مؤسسها جون باتريك مولين الذي خصنا اليوم بمقابلة خاصة على CNN الاقتصادية. Mr. John, thank you for your time. We are always happy to have you. To begin with, and very briefly, to someone who is not that familiar with cryptocurrencies, what is Mantra and what its mission?
Absolutely. So again, thanks for having me back once again. Always great to be here with the CNN audience. So Mantra is the leading layer 1 blockchain. So we're building our own blockchain specifically focused on asset tokenization, or RWA, real world asset. So effectively what we're doing and what our mission is to take all different type of real world assets and instruments and bring them on chain onto our blockchain. And we help facilitate that through our technology.
Mr. Moulin, reflecting on your former career path as a former banker, can you tell us more about this transition? Now you are someone very influential in the crypto space.
When I first started my career, I was working in banking in Shanghai. So I was actually doing kind of buy-side research, looking into emerging technologies in Shanghai, China. So I was working for a state-owned investment bank called Guotai Junan Securities. I worked there for about 2 years or so. And I was looking at all different type of emerging technologies from an international viewpoint. And my job was really to look at these things and write reports. I ended up basically doing all of my reports about cryptocurrency and blockchain. I'd been an early kind of explorer of the technology from 2013. I bought my first Bitcoin, and
so you're an early investor.
Well, I think I was a bit lucky. I had a friend in college, which is where I first purchased it, who was a computer science major, and he told me that I should check this thing out. And I think Bitcoin at the time was $500. So I got a little bit of exposure, but honestly, I was a poor college kid, so I wouldn't say I was investing. I was just a bit lucky. But
I think one is enough now.
Well, yeah, that's true. And I kept following along the technology, and over time became more interested, more intrigued. And again, when I was at the bank, that was just what I was writing all of my reports on. That's what I was researching all the time. I became really obsessed. And then, I pretty quickly found out that that type of corporate job wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something a little bit more entrepreneurial that gave me a little bit more ability to kind of do my own thing and be my own boss, so to speak. And I quit my job at the bank and joined an early stage crypto startup, moved down to Hong Kong. It was kind of like a soft landing entrepreneurial experience. And what I mean by that is the project had already raised capital, although I did help it raise money. But I just came in and helped set up everything, basically from scratch. So kind of like one of the earliest employees of an early stage startup, and I ran the Hong Kong office for them. And basically I was the boss in Hong Kong. So it was my first time of, setting up a company from scratch, getting bank accounts, basically doing everything, and did everything wrong that you do in your first entrepreneurial experience. Made all the mistakes. We continue.
So humble to the.
Well, we still make mistakes all the time. I mean, that's what I enjoy about entrepreneurial endeavors is it is constantly having to grow, constantly encountering new challenges, and constantly having to overcome them if you want to continue. So I think over the 5 years or almost 5 years of Mantara, and maybe let's say 7+ years of, my entrepreneurial journey, I found that I actually enjoy the hard times. I enjoy when it's challenging because it makes me have to be at my best. And really, it fundamentally is that I just am put on this earth to do this job. I was built for this, and once you found that kind of calling in life, then you don't have to think about what if anymore. So I know I'm here to do this, and then I can just be laser focused on how can I be the best, how can I improve, how can I be better at my job, how can I be better in communicating to my team, how can I be better in building this business. And that's something, I'm also very competitive. So I do have these kind of maybe unique character traits or skill sets that are, meant for entrepreneurs, from, hyper competitive, workaholic, hyper achiever, and maybe a little bit obsessive compulsive about the problem statement that I'm working on. So over that time, I've really found that this is, my calling. And I'm just in a really blessed position to find that out at my age. I mean, I'm 32. So finding that out quite early was something I'm very grateful for. But that also means that now I'm just like laser focused on getting better.
This is very motivational indeed.
Thank you.
Following up on this, how do you foresee the traditional banking system, their behavior towards the rise of the institutional adoption for the crypto space in the future?
So I think, everyone in crypto has been saying for a long time, the institutions are coming. And, until relatively recently, that wasn't the case, or at least not loudly. So quietly behind the scenes, JP Morgan has a digital assets team, Goldman Sachs has a digital assets team in business, all these banking institutions, all these financial firms, all these hedge funds, all these, key players.
Why they're not showing that?
I would say they are now. Maybe it's not pure, like permissionless crypto or DeFi or some of these things that are more crypto native, but they are actively participating in the market. They're actively engaging in conversations around regulation and market dynamics. And I think 2024 was the year where Bitcoin ETF got approved. That was a big tick. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, I call him affectionately Uncle Larry. I've never met the guy. I hope I will someday. He's been very important to our space and obviously to Mantara.
Why you call him like that?
Well, because he started talking about how tokenization will be the future of finance, which is something that I've been talking about probably since 2018, maybe even before, honestly. And it wasn't, the right time. The technology wasn't there. The regulatory environment wasn't as conducive as it is now. There's still a long way to go, but it's making a lot of progress. And because of all those things coming together, and because of our conviction and hard work and the team's like effort into kind of continually building over the the last years, we're in that market leading position now, where we're a leader in the segment of something that's growing, and that's a really good position to be in. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're complacent about that, because we also firmly believe that this market is just getting started. The institutions are here, but they're not here in the way that they can be. It's still a drop in the ocean of the final outcome of where this is going to head. I mean, these numbers about how big this tokenization space can be is in the trillions of dollars, and today it's still in the billions, like small amounts of billions.
John, do you believe that everything should be tokenized? And in addition to that, there's expectations that the tokenized assets value will reach $16 trillion by 2030.
Yeah.
How Mantara can benefit or is planning to benefit from this, and what's the strength that you have to achieve such success?
Sure. So, I think nowadays I don't necessarily believe that everything should be tokenized, and when it boils down to it, I think there needs to be a couple things that are checks before we would even consider it. And the first thing that we look at is, does this create value for the asset issuer? So does the person who's tokenizing the asset, is this better for them? Number one. Number two, is this better for the investor? Is there a reason why they should be tokenizing it? Does it mean that now it is fractional so you can buy a smaller piece so the barriers to entry is lower? Is it more accessible by people who may not be able to get that type of asset in their home country or wherever location they're from? So do you improve the access point? Number three, is this something that is actually legally able to do, or compliantly able to do? And if these three things are not met, then we really don't, we don't think it makes sense to tokenize it, right?
Sure.
So there are certain things which don't make those criteria.
After what you mentioned, after the MAC and MAC deals and so on,
Yep.
is there any upcoming partnerships that we're going to see in the near future in the UAE or in the MENA region also?
Yeah, so obviously we've been very fortunate to have and announce major partnerships with the likes of MAG, Damak, Zand, Novus Aviation, etc. I really feel like 2024 was the foundational layer for really what's to come. We're really focused on getting our chain launched, which we did successfully at the end of last year, and this year is also about that ecosystem development and bringing more institutional partners on board. So there's definitely a lot more that's cooking, which we're excited to share.
Regarding the SEC and Ripple case,
Yes.
this week we've seen like something that didn't align with the market expectations.
Sure.
Are you still optimistic about the regulations in the near future, especially during the Trump administration? And let me here add, we know that President Trump is one of the figures in or one of the most important investors in the real estate sector. Do you think that this will make him like do something good for the tokenization of real estate, or any specific regulations in the sector?
It's very clear that President Trump wants to be a crypto president. I think he's going to tie a lot of his success into making the U.S. a crypto hub again. So not just make America great again, but make America a crypto hub again, which we'll see. I am having honestly had conversations with a lot of the institutional players from the United States and Wall Street and abroad, but also with policymakers. People are very excited about the opportunity across just digital assets in general, more progressive regulatory frameworks, as well as tokenization. So those things do go hand in hand. And while I don't honestly know if President Trump is going to try to emphasize politically that real estate tokenization needs to have a framework behind it, I just think in general, deregulation in general across the financial sector, which I think is what people are expecting in the new administration, and maybe new regulation that's more favorable and more progressive as it comes to digital assets, would be something that naturally would benefit tokenization and obviously tokenization of real estate. So, for us, we're actively looking at the U.S. market. It's I'm American, so I'm obviously excited about the opportunity to be not just a player in the in the Middle East and Asia, but also in my home country.
I always want to ask you about this, so about your plans to work there in the United States, and I think now it matters. Being like a crypto hub again, it definitely matters with you, right?
For sure. I mean, I'm a proud American. I feel very, very much American, even though I've lived my entire adult life outside of the U.S. I think from my perspective, seeing the U.S. not give up on a technology that I'm very passionate about and an industry that I'm obviously very involved in is something that I am happy to see. I do think that there's still a long way to go, but seeing the active participation from crypto digital asset users in the States and how it really did have a bit of an impact on the U.S. election. I mean, that's crazy. Going back a few years ago, everyone would have not believed that was a possibility. I do think there's bigger issues than crypto in the United States, obviously, and that's something that we need to fix as a country. But for us at Mantara, I mean, we do think that the U.S. market doesn't even really know us yet, and that's been feedback we've gotten from major investors that we're still maybe overlooked in that market, which is a good thing, honestly, for us. I believe that's a very positive thing. That's an opportunity.
How?
Well, if they don't know about us now, they will know about us soon.
Sure.
I'll make sure that happens. So, and the team will make sure that happens. So for us, that's a good way to, go into a market that doesn't know about us, educate them about what we're doing, and show them that we are the dominant player that we are. And personally, I'm very long on the U.S. forever. I even have presidential ambitions myself.
I know.
I told you. It's a little bit of a joke, but maybe someday.
You mentioned that in our last interview,
I
remember.
I have a couple goals in life. It's I have mantra specific goals.
You will be the crypto president.
Well, mantra specific goals. I want to own the Cincinnati Bengals, which is my hometown football team. I love the Bengals so much. And president.
What's the first thing that you will do? Let's assume.
Mantra goals first, obviously. I can't say what it is though.
Okay. Now I'll ask you about something regarding the real world assets also.
Yep.
I'll mention two examples of them: the collectibles and the carbon markets.
Yep.
And sustainability today is very important for every single government and every single person on the earth. Is Mantra considering a partnership or something else with such RWAs in the future?
So I think there's two ways to kind of talk about this, and then we can obviously talk about the NFT part as well. But in terms of the sustainability piece, we actually have a startup that I've invested in personally, but also that we've incubated. It's called Pisces. It's actually a local startup here in the UAE. They create sustainable electric motor vehicles, motorbikes, that do delivery. Yeah. Right? They have contracts with Kareem and Noon and Talabat, and they have these electric motorbikes which go out and actually deliver food to people. And it's interesting because if you remember in April of last year when they had this big rain in Dubai, the crazy rain, a lot of the combustion engine motorcycles, which are not so good for the environment, actually died because of the rain and the flooding. But the EV bikes continue to work. So now they have even more contracts with these guys who want more deliveries of these bikes because they're just a better, more sustainable option. Their problem is, how do they finance the expansion of their fleet? So that's where you can come to tokenization, where you can actually finance and invest into these motorbikes, which then are basically loaning them money to go out and buy new bikes, deliver them to the customers, deliver food, and they get a payback. And they actually earn you a yield, a relatively interesting and attractive yield. So that's one of the actual startups that's tokenizing on Mantra today. Obviously, carbon credits is another one. That's something that we've explored. It's a very challenging one. I mean, you've seen it at every level. You've seen it in major governments, and you've seen it across the world, people trying to tokenize carbon credits. And personally, I think when we can finally align the economic incentives of all the stakeholders, then it can be a big thing. But personally, there's not alignment. Or today, there's not alignment. And I think personally that's going to be the biggest hurdle. So we're talking with major stock exchanges to major players who are, obviously they have a remit to tokenize carbon credits or do something carbon focused, and it's just very hard to bring it to the mass market. So that's been something that I've seen and explored, but it's been a challenge to make it very prevalent in the space.
John, there have been some talking that some NFTs will be planned to launch on the Mantra chain, and this is very important. And is it true?
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about, Mantra is still an RWA or real world asset chain. That is our core focus, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't engage in the community building activities of the crypto space, right? And some of those things include, meme coins and NFTs and collectibles and things of this nature. So, one of the kind of NFT collections that some folks in the team came up with was actually collaborating with an interesting artist called Sad Sad Story. He's a relatively famous artist in the Cosmos community for NFTs. He makes some very interesting art, and we are doing a collection that's dropping tomorrow that's aligned with our mission or aligned with our focus. It's called the On-Chain Homies, kind of like On-Chain Homies. So our goal is to really bring people on-chain so they can interact and do things on a blockchain, maybe for the first time ever. And a part of thing that I like about crypto and also just company building is really creating and crafting an interesting culture that's supportive and unique. And we do want to have an interesting cultural aspect into our community and our ecosystem. So this is really the first one that's coming.
Last one. Do you think that Bitcoin will reach 200K by the end of 2025? I know you don't like to talk about the price, but it's maybe about your sentiment to the market. And what about Ethereum, in your opinion? Why it's not like working, or it's not moving in parallel with the bull market nowadays?
So, in terms of whether Bitcoin will hit 200, I'm not sure it's going to go to 2 this year. I do think inevitably that it will. I'm quite positive about that, honestly. Just like I felt 100K was inevitable as well, but 200 in this time frame, it's not impossible, and I'll be a little political here. I'm not sure that it's going to happen this year. So let's see. In terms of Ethereum, we were talking a little bit off camera about, sometimes companies or projects are in peace, and sometimes they're in war, right? And you need a leader who is fit for either time. Sometimes the leader is good in both, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're always good in both. And I do feel presently Ethereum is at war. And I don't mean that in necessarily a negative way. It just means that there's a lot of competition. Solana, Sui, Avalanche. I mean, there's a lot of big layer 1 chains which want to take the title, but I think Solana is probably the most primed, obviously. And they're doing things that are cheaper, more scalable, and getting a lot of traction in users. And frankly speaking, Ethereum has gone this route of having layer 2s, which take away a lot of the actual users from transacting on chain. Interestingly enough, we were looking at the statistics of how many people have done a transfer of Ohm token, because Ohm also is existing on Ethereum, over its entire history, which is almost 4.5 years, is less than in the 2.5 months of Mantra's mainnet being live. So the entire 4.5 years of history of Ohm, there's been less transfers on Ethereum than there has been in 2.5 months on Mantra. And because of that, the reason because of that is because of it's expensive. And it actually prices out the average user. So, I think it just goes to show that there's a lot of scalability issues that are not solved yet. And, fundamentally, if that's, really the end goal for Ethereum, to actually have people be able to, utilize its blockchain for something other than, just being a settlement layer for smart contracts, there's going to have to be some change. And I'm not sure, not to throw any shade at Vitalik. I think he's an amazing, influential person in our industry and has created an amazing technology. When you have something like the Ethereum Foundation, which is naturally a bit more decentralized in authority and governance, it does present challenges. And obviously it's also, a massive 300, 400 billion project or protocol at this stage. It does present problems when trying to be at war. So I'm still optimistic that Ethereum can manage, but there is increased competition, and that's a good thing.
Mr. Mولين, thank you so much for your time. شكرا لمتابعتكم.